Guys, a smile now, all right? Just because you're recording.
All right. And we're live. Okay. So, hello everyone, and welcome to
Hey.
episode 6 of the Artefact podcast. And today we have a very special guest. He's an illustrator and concept artist, and you may have known his work from his unique and distinct style. His name is Gary Villarreal. So,
You
welcome,
said it
Gary.
nicely, dude. I'm glad that you said it nicely. A lot of people mess up my last name.
Yeah, well, I
Thanks for
think
having me,
that's
by the way.
oh good, oh good. And honestly, I spent like a week trying to pronounce your name. Honestly, like, cause like I keep on having to read back and forth to make sure that does that sound right? It feels weird, and then
Yeah,
it just like try to change my tone and all that. But I hope it did your name justice.
you did good. Did you put it on Google Translate and like how does Google Translate say it?
Something
No, you
like
did good,
that.
man.
Something like that. So
Well,
to
again, thanks for having me, man.
yeah, awesome. It's great to have you here. And for those who just get to know you, how about you introduce yourself and briefly through your journey with us?
Cool. I mean, when it comes to the journey, it's gonna be a long one, but I mean, I could briefly tell you what I'm doing right now. Just like a concept designer as in mobile games and the game industry at the moment. And I used to be in the VFX world, but I ended up tapping out of it, jumping more into the game world. And now just focusing on that and personal work. And believe it or not, a little bit of game design. So I've been heavily spending a lot of my time into game
Mhm.
design. And so, yeah, it might be a little weird that I kind of I don't want to say pushed away so much of my traditional work, but I still go back and forth in terms of keeping it fresh because I don't want it to like die out. Now, in terms of journey, I think, I mean, where to start, right? I feel like we all have this way of finding this passion that we had at a young age. And, but of course, I've always had like the influence around me. Like my brothers would always draw around me, but I never had like a illustrator person next to me, teaching me, or it was more of a way like a way for me when I would draw, just a way for me to kind of like escape where I was currently at. And then that passion, I guess, ended up growing. Ended up going to it followed me through high school and college, and I mean, of course, it's not like an amazing story where it's like, oh, I ended up losing a leg and I got this crazy thing that, made me it fueled my passion for art, But I guess as we continue the conversation, it'll trickle in and I could get deeper into that conversation as well. But yeah, man, it was a tug of war relationship with art, going back and forth. I don't know if you ever had that. Have you had that like moments in
Oh
your
yeah.
life where it's
Oh,
Yes.
like you would
definitely.
focus on other things, right? Isn't it a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like a
Yep.
long lost lover. If that
Yeah.
was
Sometimes it's good to take a break, just to digest everything, and you come back generally way better, in a better state of mind and with new ideas.
Yeah, it's true. It's I mean, in a way, it's like when people say they recommend traveling. You're kind of like building up your visual library doing that. You're
Yeah,
getting more
yeah.
Oh,
experiences,
definitely.
and so you're adding on to your skill in a different way. But we get so stuck into, oh, I have to produce. I have to be down, head down, working on whatever design or whoever client, I guess. And I always have to be evolving kind of idea. But little do we know, just actually taking a break and like recharging, that's the key to unlocking another door,
Yeah.
right? So it's weird because I started understanding that late in the game around your age, Tim. So, um, for me, I felt like it was late. But then, that's why during 2020, I kind of wanted to travel more. But that's when all hell broke loose with, oh
Yeah.
crap, the pandemic and stuff. That kind of threw a nice little loop into the creative journey because I swear I wanted to like know the world. I had so much money saved up. I was, "Hell yeah, I'm gonna do this." I was telling my wife this before we had a baby, and, I wanted to come back with, like, a big old brain full of knowledge. But I just stuck to Pinterest after that 'cause
Yeah, I think travel can definitely bring like plenty of inspiration to people. For me, like there there are like comparisons that you start making once you travel a lot. For me, there's
Mhm,
a difference. Like one of the first few differences that I get to acknowledge when it comes to the spatial awareness is the vastness of the sea compared to the vastness um of the desert. I got to
mhm.
go to Dubai for a bit, getting into the desert for a day or two, just to feel the culture, getting to
Yeah,
like an overnight camp, and then going out to sea in Indonesia and getting to witness like all these volcanoes just being so massive, like, and such comparisons cannot be taken on when you're just in front of a computer. Of course you can see the pictures, there are plenty of great pictures and references, but to feel it really, it's something
it's a different
else.
thing, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's like it it it's a weird feeling that you get whenever you see the scale of a mountain in front of you, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it almost attracts you. It's almost like have you ever done this? And I know it sounds really weird for me to say this, but have you ever stand next to a ledge? I know it sounds really bad, but, like, you have this gravitational pull. It's like something.
Yeah.
I'm not really saying, like, stand 1 foot a away from a ledge, but, like, it's this weird pull that you get. So, when I'm looking at a mountain or something huge or building or, like, the last time I went to New York, I felt that when I looked at a skyscraper from the bottom, I just felt this, like, whoa, scale, you know? And so, that's extremely beneficial when it comes to, like, concept design or just designing, things for anything, honestly. Just trying to capture that other sense that a lot of people don't usually get. But if you're able to replicate that through an image, that's amazing.
Yeah.
hmm definitely,
I was gonna
definitely.
I was gonna ask you a question, and I just had a little it seems like everybody has brain farts, right? Like a little
It's
we
fine.
derail, you
It's
know?
fine.
But
Yeah,
but
it
you were talking
definitely.
about, no, go ahead.
Oh yeah, it definitely happens from time to time. But yeah, we were talking about traveling and trying to translate experiences into art.
Mhm, mhm. Oh, there you go. Now you brought it back. Another thing is an emotional aspect, right? Like understanding whatever hardships that you're going through, being able to translate that hardship into work, right? Being able to share your, I guess, your traumas through your artwork as well. So that's like another experience that a lot of people don't really take advantage of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's something I'm
Hmm.
talking with my students a lot. I'm always sharing my experience that in my art career, it clicked about storytelling when I did hypnotherapy and I cleared off a lot of traumas that were very
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
And it's funny because at some point I snapped out of hypnosis. It's like waking up out of a nightmare, you know? It's a
Mm.
very weird sensation. And it's a moment that the hypnotherapist dreads a bit because you are very vulnerable. It's like exposing an open wound. And
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has to put you back in hypnosis and clear that. Otherwise, you are left very messed up, let's say. It's funny because it was about a procrastination issue I had regarding my work. I was talking about a personal
Mm.
project I had with some owls and all of that. Um, and just the hypnotherapist very calmly was like, hey, that project that you were talking about, what's the first piece you made about it? And I just
Mhm.
opened my station, I scrolled at the very bottom of it, and I was like, there's everything. That's the entire trauma that is there in one piece.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it was incredible to get to understand why that piece was so meaningful to me. And at the time, I didn't have the tool to understand that. And I think a lot of artists they
Mhm.
are reaching sometimes somewhat of a breakthrough moment with those pieces like that.
Mm. And it's true because, especially if you don't have the skill to back it up or, like, the skill to communicate your vision, it could lead to a deeper hole, and
Yeah.
it's weird. Maybe exploring a different medium might help out with that. And,
Mm.
so for me, the medium that really helped me out was, graphite. It was simple. It's a simple medium, and it's cheap because I'm a cheap ass sometimes. And so it kinda tailored to what, you know and I'm not saying, like, I had a crap ton of trauma, but it tailored to that emotion that I was trying to, like, communicate. And it could easily be something that you're going through, at the moment in your life, right? Like, maybe you're politically exhausted, so you're just doing a lot of, like, political work. I see a lot of people doing that, and that's a cool thing. That's a good way of venting your emotions as well.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I don't have any students, but what I would recommend is honestly tapping into that soul, because we're often walking daily in a zombie-like state, you know? We have, suppressants, coffee, little mud water right here, but this is not mud. I mean, that mud water is expensive, but this is coffee. But, those are things that I would definitely recommend my younger self, and which is, like, younger artists as well, to tap into that.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that you're teaching that, because it's something that's, you're playing in a sense, a therapist role. That's a big shoe to handle
Uh,
or
I
to
would not
fill in.
label myself as a therapist, but yeah, art can be
No.
very therapeutic, especially when
Mhm.
every time you see a picture, a game, a movie that makes you very emotional, you can always ask yourself why.
That is
Why
true.
is it
Yeah.
tingly that sensitive strings of yours? And you tend
Mhm.
to learn a lot about yourself, and you can out of that you can probably assume that other people feel this way. So if you extract that ingredient, that's a storytelling element you can implement in your work too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, do you ever find that you can get a little too submerged into that you could get obsessed? Can
Yeah.
it be a bad thing
Oh,
as well?
definitely.
Can
Yeah.
you can you be hyper can you in other words, can you be hypersensitive where it actually becomes detrimental to your personal life?
Oh yeah.
That's the balance between that, right? I guess you gotta
Mm.
figure out when to tap out of it
Mm.
Yeah.
and, allow your reptilian mind. Oh, that's a ghost.
Yeah.
Boy, you got some ghosts back there, man. You need to put a crucifixion or something back there, some crosses. No, I'm just joking. See, you know what it was? Because we were trying to stop the emotional aspect of
Yeah.
this, and I think some ghost behind there called Groovy
Yeah,
was trying
probably.
to.
I I um a long while back, uh I was asked by a bunch of friends who aren't artists. Like they were trying to understand certain piece of art at a gallery, and they were asking me how should one interpret an artist work, right? Because it's really tough for other people to to get into art right away. At times, some people have to take some time to let themselves go, for example, and then try to absorb the art. It takes time. Some
Yeah.
people can be more
Mhm.
sensitive, so so basically they sense it quicker. They can feel what the artist's intent is quite quickly.
Yeah.
So for you, how do you answer that kind of question? Like how do you guide someone into understanding someone else's art?
I think ultimately it takes time. It's an acquired taste, right? It's almost like drinking beer. In the beginning, you're not gonna like it, but then after that, you're gonna slowly get the taste for it. So for this, I know I brought up beer, but that's like the only thought that I had in mind. Um, but when I usually go in the beginning, it was really tough because I would look at a lot of abstract work and be like, what the hell is this? But eventually I just started looking at shapes and how shapes were making me feel in a particular way. So then I started thinking, okay, was this, what the artist was intending to do, right? Or did they use, this particular blue for this square shape, you know, uh, composition, I guess you could say, and or just shape, and were they intending me to feel constraint, sad or something like that? Then I started thinking about that as before that, I was more of like, okay, well, that doesn't look like a human being. I'm automatically gonna discard it. But now, what I've started to realize about my tastes as a creative, I started leaning more into the contemporary or the abstract, and then I started thinking it's more internal. It's making me reflect why I'm feeling a particular way. You know, so again, for a novice going into like a gallery, they're not gonna react. That's that ghost, bro. Um, but it makes you
So
feel a particular way, right? So in the beginning, you won't understand a lot of things until you submerge yourself and continuously. And of course, you got to have people that guide you, but like, this is what the artist was intending. So you start, understanding certain tactics that artists use to convey a certain emotion. So then you start like using that knowledge to like see other works of art in a particular way. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. It's
It's
like
just a buildup.
it's almost like exposure therapy, right? You expose something to
Exactly.
them long enough,
Exactly.
and they slowly get it. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, and at this point of the conversation, like I kind of want to dial things closer to concept art, because with concept art, right,
Hmm.
it's in most cases it tends to be quite industrialized in some sense. There's a quota for things
Hmm.
to get to be met. There are functionalities to be conveyed, and at
Hmm.
times you
Hmm.
may not be able to have plenty of you may not be able to have leg rooms to wiggle around and to explore things further the way you want. So with you as someone who is in an industry, how do you balance that out? Like how, like what kind of stuff do you hang on to in the concept art process to, let's say, maintain your artistic integrity while still having that industrial quality needed for the work?
What I started realizing is the work that you put behind the scene. So let's say the libraries that you build, either from models, from reference boards, all those kind of things. That's the only way to speed up the process when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to like the actual design phase, that's like for me, it's such a tangle dance, it's like a dance that you have with the client and trying to figure out the I guess the problem that you're trying to solve. But in other words, like what you were saying beforehand, I realized that just the work that you put behind the actual professional work is what really benefits the way you approach it. You know, because like what I've started noticing, like people, for example, on a side hustle, they do a lot of like 3D packs or they do a
Mhm.
lot of like they take photos when they're traveling, and that's like the database that they're accumulating, which then influences their work in such a big way. And yeah, I like completely just cut that part. But
That's fine.
Yeah, it's
well, what about you guys? I mean,
mm, um for me, like the I because like for me, I consider myself more of a designer. The way that I
hmm.
think is greatly based on empathy. I was trying to understand, like,
Hmm.
let's say if a character walks into this room, what kind of
Hmm.
experience will he have, right? Like how will
Gotcha.
he
The
walk
story
through,
aspect of it, yeah.
yeah, like how
Yeah.
we walk through it
Hmm. Hmm.
from A to Z, what kind of
Yeah.
scale we are talking about, what kind of lighting should we think about,
Hmm.
what is the kind of function that needs to be highlighted so that the character, so that
Yeah.
the audience, once playing that character, can bring him towards that with intention,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So
The story
so
aspect does
yeah,
play a big role, though. Yeah. Yeah. No,
yeah.
that's a good way. Yep.
Yeah.
What
It's kind
about
of
you,
the
Tim?
same on it's kind of the same on my side. I've been mainly doing very early dev and illustration. It's always about again the storytelling, but also engaging the senses. Like how will the
Hmm.
player
Hmm.
feel watching that picture or being in that environment? Can you hear the picture? Can you engage the
Yeah.
touch, the smell. Can you smell the picture? I know it sounds very weird because we are doing a very visual type of art, but to me, I'm more thinking about the other senses, even the soundtrack, the senses, the
Yeah.
sound, all the small details. And I'm starting from
That's
that,
like
and
a
then the pictures kind of builds up itself naturally.
yeah. You're taking that a director approach, like the
Yeah,
overview, you know?
yeah,
A lot of things
yeah,
that I like to do too is like if I'm designing a certain character, how would I feel if I had like, let's say a strap designed in a
yeah,
certain way? Like, would it
yeah.
be comfortable to have a big ass skull? Of course, it depends if it's fantasy or whatever.
Mm,
But
Mhm.
yeah,
yeah.
that's a lot of. I misinterpreted the question, so that's why I was kind of like going in a different way. But yeah, there's a
No,
lot of things that you have to consider when you are.
yeah, it's understandable because I think the way you approach your art is this is how I interpret it whenever I look to your work. It's like you just feel it first and then think about the functionality
Yeah.
later. That's
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
and of course, like
It's not a.
like either that you
It,
think about the emotion first and then you go into the function, or you go to with the function first and then you feel something. Most of those methodology can still yield great results as long as you know what you're doing.
mhm.
Of course, it
I
it
think when it
takes.
comes to
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think when it comes to like the personal work, I lean more first the emotional and then the functionality. But when it comes to like actual, professional work, I lean more towards what the client is feeling and then the functionality. That way, I'm taking what they feel, and then I start merging in my thought process into that as well. But the function serves a big role there, right? Because that's gonna dictate the design and then the cool factor. Of course, anybody can make something look really cool, but when it comes to like the film or the games are a little more lenient, but more film. So the actual functionality design that plays a big role. And depending on like if it's sci-fi, you got to be extremely like
Oh yeah,
on the point on that. They're real design driven. You know,
yeah.
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
no, but you made a good point though, James.
yeah. Like for with in my experience, especially with the recent sci-fi IPs that I get to work on, the the head of art or the art director or the director themselves are extremely articulate. They are so
Hmm.
articulate such that, because like for me, like I have been taking on roles of a um of a consultant as well, like a recruit consultant. And
Hmm.
the majority of the people who I work with in AAA games, like they always tell me that it's so hard to find artists. It's so hard. It's so tough to find artists. And then these days, like you can feel and you can see how many artists out there are undergoing like mass layoffs, right?
Hmm.
And getting to hear from the people like in top of the industry, people saying that they cannot find anyone, it's bizarre. But
It
then
sounds like a
there's a
first world
standard.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah, but then there's a need for a standard to be met, right?
Yeah.
And at times the ability to sense something emotionally or to convey something functionally, all of those things have to be honed really. Really, it take a lot of time to hone those things, to master
Yeah.
your way through it. And
Mhm,
so
mhm.
it's just tough for people to get into the industry. But I bet for you, like your sensibility when it comes to design and when it comes to style really keeps you afloat. And and that also comes along with your social media presence.
Yeah.
um
Mhm, mhm.
yeah. So with social media, like how did that come about for you? Like to sense that, oh, people really resonate with your work.
You know what I started realizing that was when, I started integrating a lot of stories to my work, and so it's funny that you were talking about, like, they're very articulate, the art directors and all that. That plays a massive role when it comes to the industry, and, being able to, tag team and communicate different ideas effectively. That's really important. Which was something that I was in a way when I was doing my online presence or building that. I um I was heavily story driven, which is lately I haven't been because of course, personal issues with, becoming I don't want to say personal issues, but just like becoming a father and all that, just time constraint is a big thing. Um, but story was one of those things that I realized that a lot of people resonated. So they would look at, my drawing and then with the story added to it, it just added another level of understanding. And and I think that's the whole point of art, right? Just to be able to communicate a message and have somebody, interpret it in whatever way it is, but hopefully the way that you were intending it to be. Hence, the concept world is a similar approach. You're trying to communicate a design that was given to you through words or descriptions and through references that they might have given you. And so being able to communicate that in an effective way that the audience could look at it and be like, whoa, like that's I feel that way. Like, oh, it fits the entire universe that we're in. So something that I'm actually really trying to get back into, about the whole story aspect, and I realized that just like a muscle, it kind of like weakens if you don't strengthen it as often.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you're picking a battle, and what are you trying to gain? What are you missing? Those are the kind of questions that I've been asking myself lately because, um, recently being a father made me look at life a little differently. Like, what is important in the grand scheme of things? And this is gonna dive into a different conversation, which James, I don't know if you want to straddle,
Um,
uh,
sure, just
or
just
you
just
want
go
me to
ahead with
free
it.
flow.
Yeah, yeah, let's go for it. Let's see.
Yeah. All right, let's go then. All right. But one of the cool things about being a parent is that it gives you a different perspective of life in general. Um, it makes you question what is important. It makes you question, how am I utilizing my time? And these are things that even a single person could do. But I mean, of course, I didn't really have that aspect in because the parents that I knew really didn't communicate that much because they didn't. I don't feel like they were too in tune with their emotions because they were just survival mode,
Yeah.
And when you end up being in survival mode, you're not
You
thinking
cannot feel
about like certain
anything.
things. Yeah, exactly. You're just like numbed out. So I started realizing that, and with work and all that, I'm like, okay, um, how to be extremely efficient with my time that I have, the limited time. Because back then, and I'm pretty sure we're not 100% effective. We kind of like, you go on, your work and you sit in front of your studio. Hey, what's going on? You say hi to your buddies, and then maybe you flip on your phone, but you're not like completely like just own in to your work. So what I realize now is that like when it's time, like I have my time brackets, I'm like zoned in. I have never been that zoned in because I feel like this is my time. I need to be extremely efficient with this, with what I have. And so, yeah, it just give me a different perspective with fatherhood. That's why I kind of want everybody, especially artists, to experience that one day. But I almost feel like a lot of artists maybe don't want to experience that because it's the I don't want to say the selfish gene, but like, when you're creating and let's say you're building something and you're starting to understand like the audience is growing with you, you don't want to slow it down because quite frankly, when you have a kid, things kind of slow down in a certain way because of limitations. But yeah, man,
Yeah.
that was a different side. I took you through a little route.
Yeah, well, I think I think it's fair to mention that because at times artists can be quite selfish because we are in our own worlds. We're trying to construct our own things, come
Yeah,
up with our
dude.
own stories, going like and sometimes flipping through our past and finding stories to look for, or reading
Mhm.
or reading new materials or listening to other people's perspectives to get the stories.
Yeah, totally, dude.
But
Yeah.
and I think that with family life, the tendency up thought is that, oh, it will bog me down from from
Mhm, mhm,
experiencing more of that. So there's a
mhm.
selfishness coming along with that. But for me, as someone who plans to have family, to plan to have children, I
Yeah.
see I see that, family life can be part of that new experience. How about treating it
Mhm,
like something
mhm.
new and use that
Yeah.
as inspiration and try to tell perhaps more mature stories,
Mhm.
about the story of the mm, of the of the growing up, like teenager growing
Yep.
up, maybe we move on from that, we move into the more familiar territory to find goodness in things. I
Mhm,
because
mhm.
when it comes to finding goodness in things, I think in McKay said it best in one of his interviews. He said that to convey darkness and evil is so easy. It's just so obvious.
Mhm.
But to convey
Yeah.
Mhm,
goodness,
mhm.
to convey beauty so that it can land, so it can make an impact,
Mhm.
is extremely difficult.
You need a lot of
It is.
contrast for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. I mean, we all lean to like it's easily to lean onto the negativity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or yeah.
It,
And then
it's
go
crazy.
ahead, Sim.
Uh, I was about to say regarding the darkness and light thing, you even see it in so many games and movies today. A lot of them, when you look at the trailer, oh, it's this kind of very nihilistic voiceover saying the world is shit and you're going to take his revenge. And
One man.
one man against the world to seek
Oh.
vengeance. And
Yeah.
you know the story is going to be boring, and then you see games, I don't know,
Yeah.
like Elden Ring or even Dark Souls, which has like the pinnacle of darkness, and you have moments
Mhm.
that make you smile, like genuinely you fall in love with certain characters, and it's dark and you have that massive spike of light at some point that really
Mhm.
works.
Mhm.
And then you have other stories, like I don't know if you watched the Pinocchio by Guillermo del Toro, for example.
Oh yeah, dude, it was awesome. Yeah.
You see the intro, it's beautiful, and boom, becomes
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
serious straight away. Same with Ori and the Blind Forest. It's super cute. 10 minutes after, boom, you cry because again, that massive spike down that contrasts everything.
Mhm.
Mm,
Mhm. But I wonder if it's a way to bring people to the light. Does that make sense? Like,
mm,
in order for you to bring people from the light, you gotta drop an anchor down and,
Oh
like,
yeah,
or not an
mm,
anchor, like a hook, and then hook somebody in.
mm,
Because when you said you were playing Elden Ring, you got this spike of, like, excitement or, like,
yeah.
happiness in a dark place. And I think, you see a lot now based on the way the world is kinda going, so you see more of that work because people are trying to vent it out. Um, so
yeah,
James, I do agree with being the family and integrating and figuring out a way to integrate that with your personal world. In the beginning, it does take a little bit of time because you're adjusting to that massive life change. But what I realized for me, um, after like about a year and a half, you start accumulating your own rhythm or like your style of working, and then you adjust from there. And but then Tim, going back to the whole darkness in games, um, it is, but I just feel like it is like a way to awaken people in a different way. But I almost feel like the public is taking it in a wrong way. They're like, yeah, we got hell, we got this one man, one desire, two tortillas about to slash dragon's head, those
It's
kind
very
of things.
chaotic in some way.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I could see all that. It's really interesting too, man. So the
mm,
next question is like, okay, how to approach it? How to create a happy peace in a world where a lot of people don't want to see that, or maybe they are trying to see it, but you got to have some kind of degree of darkness in there to make it palatable.
Yeah,
like for people to
mm,
be like, ah, okay,
you,
yeah,
you
there's a little
can see
darkness in
it.
there. There's a dark humor.
You can
Like
see
if you
it
think
even
about,
right now. Icon.
yeah, no, like if you ever seen that game, Coat of the Lamb.
Oh my god, so good.
Okay, so good. Exactly. You're a
Very
dark
good.
man.
I've
There you go, Tim. See? And
I've
so
yet
it
to
has
play
like
it.
it has oh yeah, it's so good. But it's again, the style is happy. Like, oh, it makes you so happy, but then there's a dark underline in there. It's like but it's a hell of a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, the media games are awesome. But
Yeah. Regarding the
Yeah.
dark things, you can even see that on social media right now with what is happening in the industry, you know, and it's very hard on certain social media to bring just a bit of lightness, like, oh my god, I got a win. No, there's that and that, bad news, bad news, bad news. And sometimes it seems that people just want to be miserable in some way. I don't say
I
that, you know,
think so, man. I really
I don't
think
say
so.
that in a healthy way, but sometimes it's really fear mongering, crying closet, and just a bit this kind of crab in a basket mentality. Like, what's the point of sharing a
Hmm.
bad news that you cannot do anything about? It's going to make
Yeah.
people feel bad. There's nothing we
Hmm.
can do. What about
Hmm.
having this kind of stoic approach that not in your control, not your problem, and you just focus on what is actionable and individual instead of focusing on the collective and abstract, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
giving a lot of agency. And I really think this kind of fear mongering and wanting to be bad and always seeing things very collectively, or complaining about something way above you, it's kind of removing one's agency, you know?
Yeah. No, it's true. Um, but that's when, finding that little light within, that's going to be
Yeah,
the, or
yeah,
trying to ignite the flame that everybody has that's kind
yeah,
of dimmed down. And
yeah,
with the
yeah.
whole AI stuff, I think really threw in a nice little wrench uh, to the art industry, in my perspective.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I think a lot of people, not so much like 3D artists, um, but I think more so like the concept world, design. Not so much design either, because design is an entire different process of thinking. You know, but I mean, more so like the illustrators, they're getting hit pretty hard mentally, I believe.
yeah. The
And
fancy picture
so,
maker overall, yeah,
yeah, dude. So, and it sucks because of the way that the AI is made, right? It's just like
Mhm.
a consumption of our work in a sense. And so, I think that's why a lot of people are real pissed off and cynical. Of course, again, it's
Yeah.
easy to dive into that negativity world, that negative energy,
Mm.
and being mindful. It creates a resistance that you have to work on every day to
yeah.
like move forward.
Mm. Yeah.
That's something I'm kind of struggling. I'm pretty sure a lot
Yeah.
of people are struggling as well,
I
trying
Oh
to
yeah,
find a.
definitely.
I
Hmm.
find AI to be something bittersweet to the extreme because it's an amalgamation of our flexibility and adaptability towards social media, and
Hmm.
then our sense of self. Because we were
Yeah.
like, everyone was like having fun with social media like years, like 10 years ago. Like they'd be like, oh,
Hmm.
like this is a place where everyone meets everyone. Let's post everything up there without any thinking about
Hmm. Yeah,
consequences,
dude.
right? We
Yeah. Yeah.
barely any of us think about it. We just think that, oh, we are
Yeah.
trying to express ourselves. We're trying to show people who we are on digital platforms, but we
We're
don't
getting
acknowledge,
validation, right?
like, yeah, like, but no one reads the terms and conditions when they take yes on
Mm.
Facebook and TikTok. Like TikTok
Mm.
is recording every single key that we press,
Yeah,
right?
dude. That's
Honestly,
crazy.
all social media do it at this point, but people be like, it's fine.
Mm.
And then once it's not fine, especially when it touches their wallet, it starts taking away your
Mhm.
effort. That's when people be
Yeah,
like, where's my sense of self? Where, like, I have to
Mhm.
find it again, and they start getting into this cycle of regret.
Oh, yeah, dude. It's a deep resentment too, man. You know,
Yeah. And
it's a dark circle that
yeah,
we're all going.
yeah, but then again, like at times I can understand that people want to blame something on something
Yeah.
else,
yeah,
right? Most of
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
time we want to see ourselves as the good guy. But
Yeah, yeah,
because of
yeah.
that mentality, we can forget that we can sometimes be the one who victimize ourselves into the
Mhm. The
situation.
ego. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Even with
Yeah,
the
dude.
insecurity, like even with insecurity, insecurity is part of the ego. People may think that ego is like a sense of overconfidence, but insecurity is part of it as well.
for
Because
Exactly.
sure,
The
identity.
overconfidence is a way. Yeah, dude. There you go. Right there, that identity shock right there. And it's funny
Yeah,
because a lot of people, even at the top, the top artists, they're feeling insecure about themselves every single day too. It's a daily act of like staying on top. Oh, am I going to be on, you know, performing at a certain level
Yeah.
consistently is a task in itself. Is a daunting task.
Yeah.
Of course, you have your own skills that kind of back it up, right? Your own habits that enable you to get to stay at that level, but you start becoming extremely analytical of your time. And I think that could actually affect friendships, family, and all that crap
Oh
because
yeah.
you're like, no, I can't hang out with you guys. In your head, you're trying to be nice. You're like, oh, cool, I'm gonna be home. I got some things to do. But in your head, you're thinking, no, I want to keep on working. I want to keep on developing. Yada 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 yada. It's an obsession. I was extremely obsessed at one point in my life, which honestly, it created the shadow that I'm in with the tree that I ended up growing. Right, so I'm enjoying the I guess the fruits of the labor. But then you start thinking, okay, what are the other seeds that I'm trying to plant so that I could have that shade later on? And
Right.
how obsessed can I get to be cut to plant that? And
Yeah.
that's when I started getting into game design because I've always enjoyed game design as a kid. Like I just enjoyed the games in general and making them. And so I was like, I have this little seed in me that it's always been nagging at me. I don't know if you ever had this before, but like a certain thing that is not completely in the same direction of art, but it's like another form of art that you never really paid attention to, but it surfaced eventually down later
Yeah.
in your life. And then for other people that could be cooking, whatever. It could be anything.
By the
And
way,
so, mhm,
because you mentioned that you mentioned about your desire to to create, especially to enjoy games. Like I was wondering because
mhm,
like I was trying to steer our conversation into the industry just a bit. For people who come to you and ask you for a collaboration in
mhm,
terms of work, uh what do they see from you? Do you ever ask them like, what do you see from my work that you decide to reach out to me? Like, do you know that?
mhm. Yeah, yeah. So a lot of them are mainly the story aspect. And
Mm,
that's the thing that kind of kills me because I'm like, I love story, but I lately with my graphite in particular, I just haven't integrated the story. Like I encode it through the actual drawing, but I don't verbalize it. That's two different things, right? You could two different art forms, you know, entwine with each other. But anyways, it's more the storytelling aspect that they enjoy and that they collaborate with. So how can I infuse more story? How can I infuse more of that emotion through some of these characters? Maybe they're looking for a particular character that conveys a certain feeling. Um, but then often when I read the backstory, which a lot of them don't have a lot of backstories, but when they do, I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. It kind of dictates the design process that I'm gonna start with. But
so
mhm.
what are the things that you will hang on to when the story is not something that you expect, or the story is weak? What will you hang on to?
I I make my own and I propose different stories. So through the different iterations that I'm proposing, I just put like a little blurb next to them, and that helps out a lot. Of
Yeah.
course, if you have like different armor bits that maybe had their own storyline to it, like maybe this character had like certain armor bits that was made by his father, whatever. Those kind of like you start digging even deeper why they're wearing certain things, maybe why they're leaning a particular way. Where there's so many whys that you could ask yourself. So then as I get deeper into it, that's when I forge a story alongside to help that, you know?
Mm,
And for me, it just helps out so much, man, having that storyline. Because again, it's just a different art form. It's like a Pinterest board um, that through words that kind of enables you to think or see different
Yeah.
images.
It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy because if you know to write the story and then you have developed a certain culture about archetypes, visual language, shape language, color meaning, and
Mhm.
all of that.
Mhm.
Just based off the story and the main keywords, you can extract all the visual elements that you have to
So
put in your
much.
design. And you have
Yeah.
solved the design before you even started to draw, and so you can just focus on the technique. And you can
Right there.
never get
Exactly.
exhausted.
Yes. Yes. One of the most exhausting things is when the directors or art directors, they just don't know what they want.
Yeah.
They say, "Hey, man, like,
Oh my god.
give me like a shotgun approach." Which, okay, it's cool. It's liberating, but of course you need some of the fences, like a guideline. I don't want to say guideline, but you at least you need like a little post to be like,
Yeah, an intention.
apples, draw apples or whatever, or this character like apples, and then that's when kind of what you said, Tim, the intention, and it helps out. But then that's when again when you have the liberty and you just kind of I take the story approach, and whatever I have in front of me, whatever they give me, I make up my own story. And
Mm.
often it helps them out. They're like, "Oh, I could actually integrate what you just wrote
Yeah.
with the entire uh, game line." So yeah, dude,
Yeah. Same when
definitely
designing
would recommend.
same when
Go
designing
ahead, Tim.
environment or props, you need to put life and all
Oh,
ton
dude,
of small anecdotes everywhere. And
yeah,
you know that when the art director is like, oh my god, this is a good idea, we're going to implement that little thing in the game because it can populate the scene, you have a winner right there.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
all about sparking the enthusiasm and the emotional reaction of the
Mm-hmm.
art director. So you need to,
Mm,
in some way, again, it gets back to the root of the job, which is selling them on ideas. We are
mm-hmm.
still,
Mm-hmm.
despite being designer, we are still doing like a sales process, and we are selling them on some ideas that we have.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's very important to remember about that, especially in today's day and age of cult of technique. What software do you use? What kit bash pack you use, bro?
It.
Um,
Yeah, dude. I like how you said "bro" in
Eventually,
there.
it's just the story and, as things was saying, the entertaining factor.
Mhm.
It is, and we forget about that. You know,
Yeah,
because again, it's another muscle that you're working out, and that a lot of people haven't strengthened.
yeah,
And yeah, that's it's funny because I think The Last of Us does a good job at this, where they have little objects that have these characteristics, maybe like some etching on it from the main character,
yeah.
and you start thinking, dude, there's story behind even objects, and so
It- they are
when you
telling
start
the story
going
of the
that deep,
people who are using them. Yeah,
yes,
Mm.
yeah,
yes, and that man, dude, that's like,
I I think there's another medium that I experienced that, and it's quite complex, and I didn't know why I went there, but I went there. So it's with The Dark Knight, the movie,
oh my
mhm,
god,
right? Like
mhm, mhm,
in which the Joker switch up the place between Harvey Dent and Rachel, the girlfriend, right?
mm,
yeah,
So since Batman is into the girlfriend, so he went for her, but instead uh he
oh
got Harvey Dent,
yeah, dude,
right? And so
yeah,
with that switcheroo, like the next time around when there's a switcheroo situation, it the next one was when the doctor being captured was actually not the doctor being captured, like they were the terrorist, and the tar
mm,
and the terrorists who the cops were looking for were actually the victims being captured. Like they have tape
yeah,
mhm,
on the mouth, they cannot speak, right? So there's all that
mm,
switcheroo. And the last switcheroo that I was thinking about, it was never answered, but I was thinking about was the moment in which there were two boats full of people, and they have to press the button
I do
to
remember that scene.
yeah, to either you guys stay alive, or both of you guys go off, right? And at that moment in
Mhm,
time,
mhm.
I was thinking that perhaps the detonator that each of them hold is actually for their own boat
yeah.
and not the
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah,
guy. Like
yeah.
I started thinking about
Dude,
that. I like the script never say anything about it. The story never come to that point. But I keep on thinking like, will that be the Joker thing? Like he will do that.
mhm.
Definitely.
Mhm,
Do you think it will be
mhm,
possible? Yeah.
mhm. Oh, dude,
Yeah,
what a psychological
yeah,
F right there, man.
yeah, because
Golly,
yeah,
and that's the
so
beauty of story right there.
exactly, exactly. Like
Mhm,
because with people, right? We all try to find patterns. Human beings always try to seek for patterns in any form. And so, like, even with a
mhm,
visual medium as short as 3 hour, like, we will try to find all sorts of pattern in it to hang on to,
mhm.
because we feel that if we anticipate it, something will come along.
That's good.
We get some sort of
Yeah.
reward, right? And
Mhm,
then
mhm,
and then with the flip of that pattern is something even more stunning, right?
mhm, mhm. So it's like, when you start having a pattern within a pattern, but
Mm.
then at the end, you gotta loop it around. You have to tie it up, or leave a cliffhanger and piss people off and make a second a second film. But yeah, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of those things that, I would definitely have people focus on, developing their story, telling abilities. And not to mention it's gonna help you communicate better, just down the line, you know?
I actually
'Cause
was
if you're
wondering, like, how many times have you heard from people who ask you for, let's say, a portfolio review, right? They were telling you
Mhm.
that I do this because it looks cool. Like, how many times have you experienced that?
So they never say it like that particularly,
Mm.
but I could tell that that's what they want because of course we're just like, we're just mixing everything up. We're just derivatives if you start thinking down the path down like our station. Um, and and you might hear this a lot, but it's like, what are you able to put in, design wise? How can you communicate something in a different way? And it doesn't have to be like beautifully done. It could be something that looks kind of janky, but the actual design of it is like really intricate. Like it's interesting to the viewer. And so, yeah, again, they don't. A lot of them don't really say like, "Oh, it just looks badass." I start asking, what's the reasoning behind this? Well, why is he wearing this? And if they can't answer certain questions, then they probably weren't thinking deep enough. And I'm not saying like you don't have to think deeply on every single thing because it might just spend a lot of time or spinning your wheels and you might burn out. But at least have like a one sentence, like a sales pitch in a way, right? Like if you're doing game design, the sales pitch of your game. If you can't sell it in an elevator pitch, then it's gonna be tough to sell it.
Yeah.
So.
Mm. I because I asked that question because I have met plenty of people who were trying to bullshit their way through their work.
Oh my god.
Mhm.
Like, I
And
I
you see,
yeah,
we
I still
all
remember.
did it, man. We've all done it
Yeah,
to a point.
because like, of course, like, I find that there's some bullshit more articulate than others, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But then, like, there
yeah,
are,
dude.
because like distinctively, like remember back in college, when we were doing animation, and they have to come up with this story, and the majority of them will be like, just bullshit through it, cut it through the week, right? Like perhaps just spend like a
Mhm,
day on it, just bullshit something out, and then we just have something to animate with. And then the
mhm,
animation
mhm,
gets janky, because like
mhm.
because they were young, right? So they were trying to hone in the skill. But with the guys who focus on the story better, like, even though the skill set is janky, they can still produce a good story, and that gets
Yeah, yeah,
higher marks compared to the rest,
yeah.
right? So getting
S
into the industry
Also,
is just like that.
yeah. Also, if you're able to design around the entire pipeline, if you're able to design efficiently, where it's like, okay, do I design this character in a way that it's riggable and it won't, it won't cause a lot of like backups, like later down the pipeline. People will love you for that. They're like, I remember a couple of modelers and like raiders be like, "Oh, dude, thank you so much for actually selling this idea to the director because it actually helped us out in a weird way." You often see like, let's say novice designs where it's like a lot of jumble. mumbo and like a lot of kit bashing. And the moderator gets this and like, where the hell do I start? Like, what the hell is this? But it was sold by the director. I mean, they approved it. Okay, here we go. You're just making my life a living hell. And so if I see you, grabbing coffee, I'm gonna look at you and be like, you piece of shit.
Yeah. Congrats.
uh,
You send a file that took 24 gigabytes of VRAM to render. It needs to fit on 2 in the game.
exactly. Or just yeah, or you're just over designing for a small piece of like a
Yeah.
pixel that's gonna be on screen. Like, oh, dude, don't do that. You know, design based on what your target audience is as well
Yeah.
first, and what the director has in mind. Like, how big are the characters gonna be on screen? Of course, shape language plays a big role when it comes to like enemies and players, colors, all that stuff plays a big role.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just gotta design around those parameters, and if they have any, and if not, just make your own and hope that they
Yeah.
like it.
Rendering and detailing, it's quite overrated, especially in production. You don't need to over render everything as long as they have references for the textures
Yeah.
and all of that.
Hmm.
It's just wasted time. If they require you to polish it for marketing art, sure, why not?
Yeah, there
But
you go. I wasn't
gen-
say like,
yeah,
but you generally. So I realize that sometimes where I'm like, it's an ego thing, right? You want to present a
yeah,
nice polished concept, but
yeah,
in reality, they don't give a damn. They're like, "Oh, cool." They just want the idea, And kind of what you said earlier, Tim. You said we're in a market of selling ideas, so that's what it is.
yeah,
Yeah. And um, I kind of want to segue into well, kind of go back to social media. So currently, you have with Instagram, you have 247,000 followers, right? That is a
Hmm.
big deal, especially when you
it's a
want
lot.
to, yeah, you want to build an audience and you start your own businesses around your own works, right? I
Yeah.
have seen you doing illustrations, like doing illustrations and putting them into books. You have your own Gumroad. You have
Hmm.
things going on the side, right? Of course, the main work
Yeah.
is gonna be client work, and then you have some side
Hmm.
hustle.
Hmm.
So how do you start that
Yeah.
off? Because with many artists, like let's say that they get through the survival mode. They don't have to think too much about
Hmm.
surviving. They have more time on on their
To do
own
that.
to do
Yeah.
their own thing, right? How should they start that off?
Hmm. Well, first, I would recommend having a steady income. If you're, it doesn't, you don't have to necessarily be working in the industry. I mean, you could work. I remember when I first started doing it, I was, again, working at a grocery store. I worked at a grocery store for 10 years. And so I was doing that at the same time, on the side, doing my little side. I don't want to say side hustle, but I was just drawing on the side and posting random things on Facebook at the time. And then, it's all about the consistency when it comes to that. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, quality versus quantity." I agree with that as well. But if you're able to show like the behind the scenes on certain things for the quantity aspect of it, but then the actual end product as a quality, like one product, a crap ton of behind the scenes, that's a big key when it comes to this modern day social media. The way it's set up now. Back then, it was more like, I would post a drawing up, doesn't matter, and people will like gravitate towards it. There's one Instagram or influencer. I don't want to say influencer. He's just an artist. His name is above one art, and I love the way he approaches it. It's like an everyday thing. It's a not necessarily like a finished product thing, but it's more of behind the scenes, showing people, explaining, and dude, he's growing a presence so quickly. For me, I just haven't been posting as much, and what I realized is almost like a, a uphill battle now because you lose followers, and I think I'm assuming this is like Instagram's approach, or maybe just bots, whatever. And so you're like, okay, if I post something, it doesn't really matter. Is it gonna gain followers? Maybe not. But now at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna post it for the sake that I just want to post it. Just whatever. It's a work that I did, and But yeah, the accumulation, like how to build that momentum, it's honestly just behind the scenes every so often, not letting yourself kind of like going months without posting, which I've been doing lately because honestly, I don't care as often anymore. Like I used to care back then of like posting and letting people know that hey, dude, I'm still alive. Honestly, I don't care much, and I guess you reach a point that you reach a certain point when you kind of get that mentality, which is, I mean, it's not like detrimental, but depending on if that's your main source of income, that's when you got to worry about it, right? So yeah, I mean, the quick answer for that question: just post back behind the scenes, show what you do, show the
Talking about the
secrets.
the income, it's nice that you are mentioning that you have a stream of income first, because
Hmm.
you are also mentioning about having kids and the fact that you can kind of never stop, and some people are not considering the kid option because it's going to prevent them from doing more stuff and technically earn more money too, or at least earn enough money. And to me, it kind of highlights one of the main issue a lot of artists are having, is that they are eating what they kill all the time. They're just trading their time
Mm-hmm.
for money in a very linear way, and there's hardly any ways to kind of decorrelate that. Sure, you can
Mm-hmm.
increase your rate up to a certain point when you reach some form of escape velocity. The problem is that, and to me, that's the biggest problem that we are having in the job, unless you are starting to build some other streams of income like education, selling prints, having a shop, having a
Yeah.
Patreon, mentoring, or anything else, or investing if you have enough money that can overflow into
Mm-hmm.
that, is that if at some point something happens to you, your income goes from this to zero. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a big problem because we, in some way, we become slave of work. We
Oh,
cannot
dude,
really
yeah,
anticipate. And to me, that's
yeah.
a big problem. It ties back to, as you were saying, a lot of insecurities. Artists,
Mm-hmm.
I think the artistic field is kind of rooted in trauma. That's probably what made us more or less an artist. And
Yeah.
when the situation is good, it's okay. But when the situation is bad, and we see it right now since AI, then with the layoffs,
Mhm. Mhm.
this plus this plus this plus this, it's like a house of cards that completely crumbles, and it reveals
Yeah.
sometimes some very bad side of certain people.
Yeah.
Even
And
high
so
level, it shows that they are insecure, even they are making money. Instantly, they,
yeah,
they
dude.
don't know to resolve that conflict in some way.
Mhm. Exactly. So let me tell you a little secret. I would rather work with somebody that has a little bit of money saved up so that they could give me their authentic self. I
Yeah,
don't want them to be a yes man. And when you are deprived from money, let's say you just have bad spending habits, and you're like, I need this paycheck. Yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, of course. Oh my God, that design looks amazing. No, I want somebody that's like, bro, I don't need this money. You know, I'm here to help you out. I'm here to
yeah,
authentically be here and to tell
yeah.
you your design looks like shit. You know, so I want that. I would rather have that. Yeah. So that's why I like at a young age, either again have that steady income. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything beautiful. You could sell foot pictures on OnlyFans. That's cool, but but have some change in there and have yourself set up for like a rainy day. That way you're not like, because I feel like there's different artists that strive in stress. Others like me, I like to have that kind of steady thing. I realize that about myself. But at the same time, I'm getting a lot more into the freelance spirit where I know that maybe in a few months I won't have a job. So I'm like whatever percentage I'm making right now, I save, 50% for a rainy day, a little bit for taxes, of course. We got to pay Uncle Sam in this little punk ass face. And um yeah, and so here's another interesting thing that I've been going through recently too, going from staff into freelance. What I love about the freelance world is like your ability to pick different projects and knowing how to say no to some and yes to others that kind of
Yeah,
like tailor to your vision.
yeah.
And so if you're tight with money, you're gonna say yes to everything, and then you're gonna end up eventually crashing because you took in so much that you're not producing the quality that you're used to producing, but you just don't have enough time. So don't shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Save some money for yourself, and it'll help you out in the long term. I think. Is
It's
it
very
proven
hard
right?
for a lot of people to pick between you're like on one side you have the blue pill, which is salary security but not that much opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for growth, and if you get
Mm-hmm.
content or comfortable, you are just one client away from being jobless, which a lot of people learned the
Ah,
hard
dude.
way recently. And if you
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
going for freelance, it's like the red pill, it's very risky. You need to be okay with risk tolerance and risk
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
mitigation. But if you deal with that well, or if you can thrive in more quote unquote chaotic environment, you can reap extremely hard rewards because you have that
Yeah.
Mm.
opportunity to choose. But it comes at the price of learning that the hard way first.
Mm.
Yes. And
I
uh, and and,
think.
un- and understanding. Oh, go ahead, James.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. I was about to say that like in the working world, I tend to see two types of people: the safe type and the curious type. Most of them
Mm.
carries risk. The curious
Yeah.
type will get into risk consistently, so
Yeah,
they build up their like
resilience
Tolerance.
against that. Yeah.
Yeah. Resilience. Yeah.
this resistance towards fear, right? But with the guys
Yeah, dude.
who are into safety, what happens is that like after 5 to 10 years of production cycle or a renewal of a corporate structure, they will lose job
Mm-hmm.
immediately, and it will take them 1 to 2 years to recover from that. And
It's been
Yeah,
15 years. They
dude.
have not sent the resume. They don't know how to do it.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and 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 it's a hard, and like each 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 person should know himself enough to pick the battle.
Yeah.
Some people prefer the safety and then fight every once in a while. If it goes to,
Yeah.
or if it works well, go for it. But if you want to, feel the industry consistently, you want to feel everything consistently, you want to take on the stress bit by bit, then that's easier.
Mm-hmm.
That can be easier to chew. The thing about that is
Mm-hmm.
that after a long while, you will come to a plateau because you get tired of that, and then you have to rest,
Yeah, dude.
right? So there's
I almost
always
feel like you,
a
you get tired of.
balance.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, you do get tired of any path that you take. I believe. And if, like, for example, if you're used to the safe route, I would recommend doing something that's a little weird, but I would recommend taking cold showers. And what I mean about that is that psychologically it plays with your mind. Like, you go into a cold shower, you're like, oh my God. Oh, and then it kind of warms up eventually, right? If you're experiencing something new in your life, it's very scared. It's very like shocking to your brain. It's not something that you're used to, but then eventually you find your way around it. You find your groove again. So in other words, train your mind through cold showers or something that's very physically, you know, un, you know, what I'm saying,
Hmm.
and just to train your mind overall. I think that'll help you out to build that mental grit. Because if you tell yourself in that cold shower, no, stop being a bitch, you could do it. No, you could do it. And also, this might sound crazy too, but also like applying a goal to it. So let's say, okay, when I'm jumping, uh, I am gonna, I'm gonna work hard at getting some kind of client, whatever. And then I jump into the shower and I'm like, oh yeah, you're gonna fucking do this, you're gonna do this. Yeah, you are, right? It's this a weird thing, it's a psychological hype.
Hmm.
So I know Tim's thinking, man, this boy is
No,
crazy.
no, I completely agree with with like
He's
this
like,
controlled exposure therapy to pain. I completely agree with
exactly.
that. It's
Yes.
same like going
Yeah.
to the gym. Just
Yeah,
go,
exactly.
stop doing the curl biceps and things like that. Go for the deadlift,
Yeah, dude.
the heavy stuff that engage the whole body.
Yeah, like just hit the calves once in a while, right? Like do leg
Yeah,
Oh,
day,
yeah,
dude,
do leg
yeah.
day.
Oh God.
yeah.
I got chicken legs. Don't say that, bro. I show you my calves. You can put a stick in between your teeth. Uh, oh Lord,
yeah, but
that's
like
actually a good one.
the yeah the like that again is like exposure therapy, right? You just gotta expose
Yeah.
yourself to the new elements, test yourself out once in a while,
Yeah.
rather than being stable. I think as people get more settled in, let's say with family, with the places to
Yeah.
stay, with groups of friends, they get stagnant, like they get slower
I
when it comes to
know.
change, right? It's like
Yeah, dude.
it's the idea of trading adventure for wisdom. It feels like that,
Mhm, mhm.
but sometimes such wisdom can betray you when the time does not need that wisdom anymore.
Oh,
It
that's deep. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it's because like I actually tell people who, because I've shared this lesson with people online, is that uh there's a certain level of thought, and once you start thinking about your future, there will be a point in time in which you will not think about the goal or the schedule, but you start thinking about the moral choices that you have to make so that
Mm.
the schedules and the goals make sense, right? You need some
Mhm,
principles for
mhm,
yourself, and it takes time
mhm.
to go up that hill. When you're young, you just want to fight for something, and once you have
Yeah.
something, then you have the time and the money to rest yourself a bit and then think about that
Mhm,
side further. But if you can think about that
mhm.
further, about the principles, about the morals, it can go a long way. Of
Yeah.
course, it will
Also, I like
also, yeah, it will also be that it will also be detrimental if you think about that for so long, such that it becomes stiff. Like you get stiffened up
yes.
by such principles,
Yeah,
and
dude.
that is also a danger.
Yeah. So the way I like to look at life nowadays is seasons. You know, there's going to be a season for you to plant. There's going to be a season for you to reap the the plants that you sowed or the things. It's like a farmer's approach, and not to be too tough on yourself when, let's say, you're trying to plant during a season of actually reaping. Reaping what you sow, kind of thing. So you got to understand the stage that you're in. And this is like it could be a yearly thing, it could be like a 5-year thing. There's always periods of time that you should be doing another thing versus, chilling and relaxing. Maybe that's the time that you should be actually executing and, building relationships with other people. And it's funny that you talked about exposure therapy. Now that a lot of people are working from home, what I've started noticing with myself as well is that when I'm with other people, I get anxious. Where before I used to be like a social butterfly. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that you have a tendency to retreat where you need to expose yourself. You need to like throw yourself in a weird environment with people and actually force yourself to communicate with people to get out of that rut because that's the thing that we're going through right now with working from home. How often do you? I mean, of course, one thing is talking like this with you guys, but if you were in front of me, it'd be different. Like I'm reading your cues, your facial. Like I'm reading Tim right now. He's like, "End this podcast right now. I'm tired," and I'm like, "Look at
No,
Tim."
come
Not
on.
a joke. I'm playing with you, dude. And so like that exposure therapy is like really interesting to bring up because I think it goes it could bleed into any kind of field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So
I need more of that exposure therapy. So I appreciate you guys, talking with me.
yeah, well, it's awesome to hear your perspective as well, because like we 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 share plenty of things in common, especially when it comes to trying to explore ourselves and trying to
Yeah.
see through what we do. Because
Mhm, mhm.
I think at the end of the day, everyone has desires for something, and then life happens, and then you just have to prioritize certain things. With you, right? It's
Yeah, dude.
family. Like I can see the calendar behind you. Like that's how serious you are with family, right? Like you plan things out, right?
Oh, look at
Right.
you, man. Stop looking. Hold on. Time out real quick. Oh, can me hide? Nah, just Nah. I was trying to hide. Nah, that's true. It is true. You gotta plan ahead sometimes. And, so I know we were I know we're like, one thing what I recommend. Oh my god, I'm like having this like I can't even talk right now. One thing I wish I would have like given advice to a younger concept artist or designer was to have a balance between the actual technique, but also, tapping into the source that we currently have. Like everybody has their personal stories, but we hardly ever tap into that because we're looking at like, oh, what's out there? Oh, we have to like compare our work. If it stands out between the top artists in a bad way, then we're not there yet. So we're just purely focusing on that aspect. But little do you know, you have so much resource within you that makes you that can make your work so unique, and that'll help you stand out in a deeper level. And
Mhm.
that's one thing I wish I would have been taught. How to look inside. Yeah.
Right. I think there is a religious comparison that I can give. It's the difference between, let's say, for the majority of the Western religions that I get to observe, the tendency is that like they will have an external deity or a being or a god to look up to look forward.
Mhm. Mhm.
But with Eastern philosophy and Eastern religions, uh, let's say especially with Buddhism, right, the idea is that you look with your inner eye. You start seeing yourself, right?
Mhm.
You start to see the potential that you have, and try to
Mhm.
and of course you still have certain deity on top of you, but the idea is to marry what's within and what's without, and come to a point of compromise in which you become a
Yeah.
better self. And so it's a lot
Mhm. Mhm.
of reflection to do with Buddhism, uh, and
Yeah.
and I think that once in a while, perhaps instead of trying to look out there for something new, try to improve yourself so that you have more tools to look for something new. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can
It's good
be
that you
so
moved.
resourceful.
It's good that you slightly sideways towards this kind of mystical thing. I was about to ask you a question. Um, I'm pretty sure it happened to every artist, and I'm pretty sure it happened to you too. But have you been sometimes tasted by life with like low hanging fruits opportunity?
Uh,
Sometimes you really
can you
want to do something, or you really want to
yeah.
start working on your project, and immediately someone reaches out to you, hey, do you want to work for us?
Yes. Oh,
And you have that
yeah,
choice,
dude. Oh
like,
my
do I
god.
want to prioritize work or that thing that I deeply care about?
Oh,
I
dude,
got an
that's so
example
funny that you say that.
that happened to me in September, and I was really like, I don't know if I'm religious or whatever, but this is definitely a test in my life. It's like, hey,
It
do you want that
is.
art director
Oh,
job,
dude.
or do you want to work on your mentorship for 3 months straight without taking a single client, not being a profit, but try to launch something?
Oh, man,
And
it's funny that you say that.
I'm pretty sure it
I
happens a
guess so.
lot. Huh?
Oh, dude, yeah, that's like you're reaching out to the universe at one point in your life, and you're like, I want to bring this in. I know that's really hippie, but eventually it does come in a weird timing. The timing is never going to be on your
Yeah,
timeline.
yeah,
So it's funny that you say that because again, I've been, developing my game, a little board game that I've been doing, and I love taking that route and thinking in a particular way, differently, right? Because when you're game design, you're trying to build an experience, and so. But then I started. I got a few clients that came in around that time where I'm like, okay, my goal this year is to finish in March. And what do you know? I ended up taking the project in February, and I was like, damn, it actually pushed my timeline now.
here you
So
go.
then, and then what you end up doing is like, you work night times on your personal project, and then but you're often beat because it's like, oh man, I'm actually really tired right now, and you don't want to get into the burnout phase because once you
Yeah.
get into the burnout area, it's dark, dude. Like I ended up getting burnt out about a year and a half ago, and I didn't want to touch anything. I was like, I need to get out of this. And the only way to get out of that rut is actually by not doing, maybe trickling in little work here and there, but actually focus on other things like other hobbies. But yeah, I totally agree with you, and it does. It's kind of I don't want to say creepy is just like a lack of a better word, but it's I think you could say there's something bigger. You know,
Yeah.
it's something. Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, Tim.
Yeah, I definitely have the share of dilemma that happened to me.
Mhm.
In fact, it is something that is running right now at this point in time because I'm running a studio while working with
Mhm.
clients. So
Mhm.
I have some like new branches of studio going on while having to maintain the quality that the client needs. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of things on my shoulders. And I find
Mhm.
that there's always a chance that burnout can come anytime. But
Oh yeah.
but these days I
But you
have
don't know.
a yeah, but these days I have a method for that. There are several things
Mm.
that I tend to do. The first one is that every 3 to 4 months I will write myself a an evaluation report. So I will evaluate
Okay.
how I have been using my time, my the habits that I adapt onto that is not good, and the ones that I want to have, right? List them all
Mhm.
out and have that report like every 3 to 4 months, and that allows me to recalibrate my time. Uh, the second thing that is more immediate to prevent burnout is just to sit with myself, like literally, uh, in front, like in my living room, having no device around me, just sit there staring in blank space for like 2 3 hours. I have
Mhm.
done that, and what that does is that it forced me to sit with myself and think and reflect rather than keep on going into that storm
Mm. The
of
numbing.
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
it's yeah, and it can. I think our minds are really capable of
Yeah.
finding its way through things, but it needs time to process them. And so for
It
me,
is, man, especially
yeah, so yeah, for me, it's just sitting down with myself and
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 also
that's
being
it.
with nature. I don't know if you ever go outside. Do you ever go outside and like, or like go hiking or something, go
All the
camping or
time.
something?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for
dude,
All the
sure.
that's
time.
oh man, it is vital, I think. Or
Yeah.
just being or playing sports outside, I think is another thing. Getting out of your mind, in other words. So that's
For for
I
me,
think
it's also like going out to the beach. Like I don't want to swim. I just want to stare at it. Like just look at people going
yeah,
around
hear the
doing their own
sound.
thing. Yeah, experience
Yeah,
it. Right.
maybe chuckle after, you were relaxing too much and you ended up farting and you're just chuckling, "Ha, ha, ha, I farted," because you were sitting on the beach. Hey, just like
Yeah.
experiencing the human experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
No, but that's
yeah.
that's good. That is really good to, consider, especially when
Mm,
you're in this industry,
yeah.
you know?
I think everyone can be extremely uh clouded by the busyness of their lives, but
Oh yeah.
like
Mhm.
to the
Mhm.
extent in which they forget that they have to take care of the first person that they need to take care of, which is themselves.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean,
yeah.
that's the way to control the masses if you think about it, and I know that sounds like a conspiracy route that we're going into, but, I mean, you just gotta keep everybody busy so that they're not focusing on their interpersonal worlds, you know? So
Mm. Yeah, I think in certain cases people may feel like it. I, for one,
mhm.
think that all these things can be under control, in to some extent. Um,
Yeah.
but the idea is to know yourself, right? And there is this saying in Vietnamese, which is to say that if you have to blame something, blame yourself first, and then blame others.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Oh, do you say that to if you say that to an American, oh my god, they will be
School should
like,
be hard.
"No, that is not me. Oh my god." Yeah, dude. Oh, but yeah, I completely agree with that, man. Because you are the person that dictates your path, you know? Of course, you get touched by a random curveball that just gets thrown at you, but it's how you handle the situation. "Hey, man, you're a little too wise for your age." I wish I was like that at your age. At your age, I was like, oh, yeah, I was completely different, man.
Well, I was very fortunate to get raised by a very wonderful family who are extremely thoughtful.
Mm.
While my dad brings wisdom, my mother brings joy, and my
Ooh.
grandma brings like even more wisdom that is like slightly more ancient, let's say. I find myself being surrounded by people who seek knowledge all the time.
I
And
love that.
yeah, and
I love
so
that. That's
I
very fortunate, man.
yeah, I'm extremely blessed to be where I am, to have that kind of support system. It's great. I know that there are artists out there who are simply tortured by the fact that their parents don't support their art career. And
Yeah.
it's really tough. And I can only tell them that the way that you tell your parents that there's a way to go through this is to have a plan. Because with
Yeah.
artists,
Mhm.
right, we tend to be like I think almost all young artists have this floating sensation in which they just want to go with the flow, go through things, experience new things, but they don't plan for it. And so the people who are bogged down by wisdom, who are bogged down by experience, they will feel insecure regarding this
Mhm.
sort of adventure seeking idea.
Yeah.
And so instead of keep on going with that, how about giving your parents or your guardians something to hang on to, like a plan,
Yeah, for sure.
right? It can
Mhm.
help a lot.
I
Yeah.
I also believe that the environment plays a big role. So
Oh
you could
yeah.
let's say you have yeah, let's say you have an amazing parents. I had great parents, they weren't like super, wisdom like, but they did tell me some things here and there. But my environment played another big role because I was like in a very ghetto area. And so what the mindset there, it wasn't about like you know, succeeding in certain ways. It was like, oh man, how can I do this person wrong or it was really it was a I don't want to say a rough upbringing, but you didn't think more than 5 years. You were just kind of like there, and so that alters the way you think. Even as an older person, you still have those roots inside of you that you're trying to like take out because those were childhood memories or just childhood experiences that stick with you. But yeah, man, like it's a tough thing, especially when the parents are like not supporting. As what I like to do, I don't want to tell my kid is like, oh, that looks shitty, oh no, whatever. I almost want to be like, oh, that looks amazing. How did you feel when you were making that? Did you like the process? Because building the enjoyment of process, that is more important than the actual outcome. I believe so. That process,
It's like because if I think you may have heard of all these people who acts like let's say alpha male online who say like discipline is everything,
man.
but
Hmm.
I think that using motivation to fulfill like using the motivation to fuel the discipline is some of the things that you can do as an artist, right? Instead of having
Yeah,
to just going in discipline every day, one piece every day. Like instead of that, how
yeah.
about how about you try to figure out yourself and then try to find a motivation and then use that
For
motivation
me,
as
yeah, dude.
just leverage that motivation and slowly turn it into discipline. Like because I love this, so I will do
Yeah, I
this,
was
and
gonna
so it
say,
gets easier.
yeah. It's a habit that helps me out a lot because motivation, it's like a cheap gas. It burns out pretty quickly,
For
and
sure.
I think it comes down to the actual habit that you built and the enjoyment of the process. Seeing a piece develop from A to Z, A to Z. So
But then
yeah,
again,
man.
like it's the resources that you have to harness within yourselves, right? You're saying something,
Hmm.
Tim?
I was about to ask you guys, have you heard about the Japanese term, the ikigai?
Oh
Yes.
yeah, isn't
It's
it?
that thing, it's
Isn't
like
it?
what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you are good at.
Hmm.
Right. Um.
That's deep, man.
I
I'm
yeah.
gonna, I'm gonna have to.
I have heard of the book. I haven't read it fully, but yeah, it is the book is quite insightful
Yeah.
as to anyone who
Mhm.
want to figure out themselves.
Yeah.
Um.
It's it's like looking at a mirror in some way. If you are being honest with the process and you
Mm,
realize that that's something that you cling to, it's mainly the ego speaking. It's like, no, I don't want to admit that maybe it was not for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you can really surprise yourself with this kind of book
mm,
because
I'm
it
gonna have
was
to check
very
that book out
insightful
for
when
sure.
reading that.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
I think
Have you
I
ever seen,
oh, you go ahead.
the thought process? I think it's kintsugi? Is that it's a,
Isn't that repairing the broken vases with gold?
yeah, that's one. There's a wabi no, there you go, wabi-sabi. Is that another one? Where it's like, being content with the imperfection? I
Mm.
think that's correct me if
Okay.
I'm wrong. Imma have to look that up. But
Uh,
what I liked about that, it's you know how we get stuck into perfection? You know, it could, we won't let go of a certain project because it doesn't feel perfected.
mhm.
And but then what ends up happening is that you're actually, uh, you know, let's say you're launching it in such a time that it's already too late. It's already too late to launch a project because you passed the time frame because you were so focused on perfection.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think it's wabi sabi. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, sounds like
Yeah,
a
Yeah,
it no,
yeah.
sauce,
it
but
is. It is. It is what it
it
is
is.
wabi-sabi. Yes. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. It's from what I read, it's a worldview centered on the acceptance of transience and imperfection. So yeah, that's exactly what you
There
said.
you go. I got it right. Hey, what's up? Give me some points right there.
Yeah. Well, I think we have like a few minutes left before we have to end the podcast. And it's been
For
awesome
sure, dude.
talking to you, man. Like it's great to
Ah,
have
dude,
an
man.
It's
Thank
artist
you.
deep.
who, yeah, like this is
It was
a
great talking to people.
this is a much
No, you guys
deeper
are awesome.
episode. This is a much deeper episode in terms of the emotionality of it and the ability to understand oneself. And
Mhm.
before we end the podcast, like I would love to ask you one more thing: is your view
Yeah,
regarding
yeah.
the current state of the concept art industry? What do you
Mhm.
make of it, and what is the kind of 2 cent that you can give to younger artists, especially in on their way into the industry?
I think it would be to develop different skills as well. Like, for example, developing your 3D skills, developing not only just pure 2D work. You get what I'm saying? So being able to be, like evolving with the market. So understanding and not understanding the current market, but not relying so much on like that ego part where it's like, no, but I love drawing. You know, you gotta evolve as technology evolves, and this goes hand in hand with that whole AI stuff. Um, and I think eventually people will eventually succumb to it. Like, okay, well, I'm gonna use it. Um, Personally, I wish it was like more of a cloud generator where you look at it and be like, "Oh, I see Goofy jumping off a mountain." Um, but yeah, I think it would be like to evolve, making yourself, uh, giving yourself utility, you know, and also, I think that's. I don't want to like prolong the answer when it's just like going off to La La Land.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and to fight to be able to evolve in an ever growing industry, right? It's extremely important
Yeah,
to
yeah, for sure, dude.
to get stagnant in certain ideas and ideologies and a way of doing
It's
things will
easy.
definitely bog you down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's easy to get stuck into certain
yeah,
things, certain ways.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, again, it comes down to that like safety mindset, right? That you will suffer
Mhm.
later down the line with your comfort
Oh,
and
dude, yeah. Yeah. Especially at a young age, man, like, really take some chances. Definitely move out of, the state or the place that you're in. That way you could, understand yourself in different ways. Like, for example, moving out of the state for me was like a more introspective experience because it taught me how to, you know, be an adult in a certain way. Taught me how to interact with certain, events that happen. It taught me how to deal with the things that you have to deal with in life, like paying high rent and how to manage your money and all that stuff. It taught me a lot of things. So definitely put yourself in situations that enable those sides to come out. Being home and being in the same city is not going to enable that. Like seeing the same people, eventually, you're not going to learn a lot of things. You got to meet new people, submerge yourself. And this is more of like a note for myself too, because I feel like I'm going through a similar funk where I'm like, okay, I think it's time for me to start going to conventions again and like meeting more so for me like the game design aspect of it, but you know, even in the concept world too, just going to like Lightbox stuff like that,
Awesome.
and stop being so cheap. Get yourself a badass computer if you have to.
Yeah. All right. Well,
All right, man. I
that
really do
is
appreciate you guys.
It was amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing to talk to you as well, and it's awesome to know that an artist like yourself it's so open to being able to reflect upon yourself and to share that with others. So with that, thank you
Sure,
so
dude.
much for joining us today. And
All right, brother.
I'll of course like I'll include all sorts of links to your works and your endeavors
Yeah, dude.
below so that
Perfect.
people can reach out to you and look for the storytelling that you have been portraying throughout the years.
All right, man.
With that, thanks guys, and see you around. All right, take
See you.
Take
care.
care, man. Appreciate you guys.